And what we're going to do today is rebuild the brains of the DIY laser harp toy hack. And the brains that runs that device is a Max patch. Max is a graphic object-oriented programming interface that was designed for musicians, audio engineers, and multimedia artists. So let's get started. What you want to do is go to cycling74.com, download a free trial of Max. It'll be good for 30 days. You'll be able to save your patches for 30 days. Let's take a look at the Max interface. When you open up a Max patch, it will look blank like this. When you are programming, you want to make sure that the lock on the bottom left side of your screen is unlocked. When you want to test or run your software, click on the lock, and now it's in run mode. So how does this laser harp work? Well, on the sensor side, you're hacking an air guitar, which basically has a laser sensor in it. And when you interrupt that laser, it tells the microcontroller inside of the device to play a sound. The hack requires that you open up your laser toy, replace the 1/8 inch line out on the laser toy with a 1/4 inch TS line out, so that you can take an instrument cable and plug it into your interface so that you can bring an audio signal into your computer. And then you have to do some creative hacking to make sure that the laser is always activated on the toy. The toy only activates the laser when you press the keys on the device. So you have to figure out a way to keep one of the keys permanently down on the device so that a laser is always being produced, so that when anything interrupts the laser, will produce a sound. So that's the hacking side of the project. Here we're going to work on what to do with the signal from the hacked air guitar to create our DIY laser harp. What this patch is going to do is take the audio signal from the laser harp and use it as a trigger. What's it going to trigger? Well, it's going to trigger MIDI notes that we can use to control a software synthesizer with. For now, we're just going to use the general MIDI synthesizer that's built into your computer sound card. But if you take on this project as your final project, you may want to send your MIDI note on messages to a cool sounding VST. And for those of you who want to do that, I can direct you to tutorials that I've built that show you how to use MIDI note on messages that you create in your Mac software and send them to a VST. Okay, so now without any further ado, let's begin. On the top here is our object palette. From here, we can drag in blank objects and type in the names of those objects in order to access the objects that we need. Objects are basically prepackaged code that already have a function. Think of them as being devices that we interconnect to create something that works. All right, so the first object I'm going to create is a toggle. Type in toggle into the blank object and you get this. This is an on and off switch. We're going to use this as an on and off switch for an analog to digital converter. ADC tilde. This is going to accept sounds from your audio interface. Okay, after you have these two objects set up, lock your patch, double click on ADC, and set up your audio interface with Max. Make sure your input device is your audio interface. Okay, now after that, we're going to bring in a meter tilde. This is our peak to peak meter in Max. All right, I'm going to make it a little bigger. You can resize objects just by dragging the corners out. And this will help us monitor the signals coming through, coming from our laser harp into Max. We need the numeric values of these peak to peak meters. That's going to be our trigger. All right, so we're going to drag in another object and type in the word flow num. FLONUM. That means floating point number box. This peak-to-peak meter produces values between 0 and 1. All right, 1 means we've reached clipping level. The incoming signal from our laser harp should pass the 0.5 mark. So I'm going to bring in an object called past and then give it the value 0.5. What this object is going to do is tell another object to do something after this level meter, excuse me, after this meter tilde reaches the value 0.5. Okay. From here, we need an object called a button. And the button, I'm going to resize it just a bit, actually auto-clicks messages and other types of things for you. All right. So when I turn on my audio and I clap, you see that that's going on. Okay. You see that it triggers when it receives a sound that passes 0.5. Pass, pass, pass. You see that this button lights up. Okay. So now from here, we need something that will help us run a sequencer. This laser harp won't give you variable frequencies. So we have to create those variable frequencies in Max so that it sounds like when you swipe your hand over the laser that you have the ability to play multiple notes. We're going to automate those notes with a sequencer. So I'm going to bring in an object, multi-slider. And this is where we're going to program our sequence of notes. Right now, it's just one big slider. Let's make a slider with 8 notes. In order to do that, we have to click on our multi-slider, click on Inspector on the right side of the screen, the eye on the right side of the screen. And what we're going to do is increase the number of sliders from 1 to 8. You can have as many sliders as you want. I'm just choosing 8 for this example. Okay, now next what we're going to do is make sure that the slider values conform to MIDI and that we're not dealing with wavetable values, which would be more for sound synthesis. Let's see. Okay, range. Yes, we need to change this to the MIDI range, 0 to 127. Okay, and now we should definitely have MIDI sliders going on here. There we go. Okay. Now what you want to do is select the notes for this slider. So you can do that by sending this multi-slider, your sequencer, a list of MIDI note numbers. Okay. Instead of dragging in a blank object, this time I'm going to drag in a blank message. A message is an object that gives other objects commands. Okay, so I'm going to drag in a message and type in the 8 notes I want this sequencer to produce. MIDI note 60 is middle C, so you can have that as a reference. MIDI note numbers are integers and go up and down by half steps. So when you go from 60 to 61, that's going from middle C to C sharp or D flat. Okay, now connect your message to your multi-slider. When you click on the message, it will produce your sequence for you. You could have multiple messages go into this if you want to produce different sequences. Or you could change it in real time if you want to, but if you want to go back to the default, you just click on the message while your patch is locked. Now, as I sweep my hand over the laser, I only wanted to access one of these sliders at a time. That's how my sequence is going to work. So I need something to tell this MIDI sequencer which slider to access at any point in time. So I'm going to bring in a counter object, and I'm going to have it count between the numbers 1 and 8 because that's the number of my sliders here. And I'm going to have this button trigger the count. And I need to display the count using something called a number box. Okay. remember, this is going to be connected to your laser harp. It's not going to be reading your built-in microphone. So it won't be, once you have everything connected properly, it's not going to trigger via clap. It's only going to read what's coming in through your laser harp or your device, your hacked device. Okay, so from here, I need an object. Excuse me. From here, I need a message called fetch $1. That's going to fetch the value of individual sliders in this multi-slider. $1 in a message means that message can accept numbers coming from another object. This is a variable here. So I'm going to connect my number box to the fetch message, and then I'm going to connect the fetch message to my multi-slider. All right. Now, when this receives an incoming signal, when this number changes, it's going to be reading the value of that particular slider. This is now reading value number 3 or slider number 3. Now, to see what value my multi-slider is spitting out, I'm going to set myself up with another number box and connect it to the right outlet of my multi-slider. Okay, and now I know what value my multi-slider is spitting out. So you see here, this is reading slider number 2, and according to this list, slider number 2 is on MIDI note number 67, and it's confirmed here that this has played MIDI note number 67. Now, we need to actually create the MIDI notes. The easiest way to create MIDI notes, or excuse me, MIDI note on messages in Max is with an object called make note. So I'm going to drag in another blank object. I'm going to type in the word make note. We're going to give our notes a default velocity. I'm going to max it out at 127. And you have to tell MIDI you have to tell Max when to turn off the note. So make note not only makes MIDI note on messages, it also automates your MIDI note off messages. So I want make note to send a MIDI note off message after a second. You can make it longer or shorter, however you want. Okay, now if you hover over the inlets of make note, it will tell you what those inlets are for. You notice that the first inlet is for pitch or MIDI note number. This number box is displaying the values of this multi-slider, and what I'm going to use these values of the multi-slider for is to create MIDI note on messages. So I'm going to take the output of this of my number box that's connected to my multi-slider and bring it into the first inlet of make note. Okay, now I need to send my MIDI note on messages to my computer sound card. How do I do that? With my note out object. Note out has 2 inlets that we need. The first inlet for pitch and the second for attack velocity. You'll notice that the outlets of make note correspond to those things, pitch and attack velocity. So we're going to go from there to there and from there to there. We don't need to set the MIDI channel unless you want to control multiple instruments with your DIY laser harp. Again, that could be something you want to do for your final project. For now, I just want you to build this basic software, basic software so that you have something to build on for your final project, should you choose this option for your final project. Again, to clarify, you don't have to choose this hack project for your final project. You can choose to build an adapter cable, or you can choose to do one of the contact mic projects, which are really cool too. You can choose this, or next week we're going to look at your final option, which is to work with a single coil magnetic pickup. Okay, that's so again, the only thing that's due this week is your quiz and the building of this patch. And you're going to submit your build via screenshot. So once you've built your patch, just submit a screenshot to Brightspace to show me that you have built this basic patch, which is the brains of the DIY laser harp hack. And then if you choose to do this project, you'll already have the basic patch built. So by default, Max will tell your computer sound card to generate piano sounds. I want to create harp sounds. So you need a way to create program change messages in Max. So in order to do that, you bring in a blank object and you type in PGM out for program out. Okay. And I know that program 47 is Harp, but if you don't want to use the Harp sound and you want to preview all of the general MIDI sounds on your computer sound card, you could just bring in a blank object, type in slider, and that'll give you a MIDI slider. Let's fit that MIDI slider with a number box so we could see, oops, yeah, what values it's displaying. And we could hook that up, hook the number box to the first inlet of program out, and we could change our sounds using the slider. I clicked on 47 just to have it as a default. Okay. So we've built the brains of our DIY laser harp here in Max in just, this one sitting. Okay. Now what you have to do, guys, to complete the assignment, take a screenshot of your build and upload it to Brightspace, and I'll give you credit for it. Save your patch in case you decide you want to do the laser harp build for your final project. Okay. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.